probably shouldn't be a surprise at this point, but one of the federal departments in charge of making housing affordable and accessible, especially to lower and middle income individuals, is up for a potential massive cut in its budget. Is the Department of Housing and Urban Development, headed up by Ben Carson. And earlier this month, a draft of the proposed budget came out. The request cuts funding by $6 billion for 2018 to about $40 billion. So we're talking about, like, I'm terrible at math. I'm gonna say between 15 and 18% of its entire budget being cut. A HUD spokesman did not respond to requests for comment, perhaps understandably. The biggest cut to the department would eliminate the $3 billion Community Development Block Grant Program, a state and local entitlement that benefits low and moderate income communities, including building roads, sewers, and housing in those areas. But don't worry, Ben Carson says, yeah, we're cutting the budget by billions of dollars, but the private sector will come in and build those sewers for free, presumably. Yeah. I don't know what. So again, you're not only not getting the money for the government, but then those states and localities are going to have to pay massively to private companies to build roads and sewers and those sorts of things. But additionally, rental assistance to tenants, another big part of HUD's mission, would fall by $974 million, and capital funding for public housing would fall by 2/3. So again, that's sort of the last note here, but one of the most important components of HUD is providing that initial capital funding so that you can get new housing, especially in areas with massively rising populations. To cut it by 2/3, I mean, they're not hiding at all. There's no subtlety to how little they care about the interests of some of the lowest income individuals in America who depend on this sort of funding for initial access to housing, that it exists there at all, and when it's there, that they can actually afford the rent.
Well, to be fair, this isn't just targeting people in a lower socioeconomic part of our country, you know. I'm sure in Beverly Hills, they stopped upkeeping all the parks. The grass is growing, the trees are shedding, and none of it's getting picked up. And you know what's gonna happen? The people in Beverly Hills are gonna come out and cut those lawns themselves and clean up their own stuff. They're not gonna complain at all. They're gonna say, this is our community, we're proud of it, we're gonna take care of it. We don't pay any taxes, it's okay.
It's a bootstraps, that's what they're gonna do.
They respond.
If there's one thing I know about Beverly Hills, it's bootstraps. Okay, you know the howling that would happen if you actually did this to any rich neighborhood? Yeah. Anyway, first of all, they're just shifting money around. You're not actually saving money if you're a taxpayer. They say, oh, well, the state and local authorities have to pick up the slack. And private, like John said, why would a private corporation build a sewer? Unless they were then going to charge you for that sewer for the rest of your life.
Yes.
And charge you way more than it would have cost you if the government built it.
Like when you set up a toll road, it's pitched as saving money. You get a little bit of investment of community, and then the individual people have to pay for that for the next century.
Yeah, so you actually pay more under that circumstance. And so you say, oh yeah, I'm gonna lower your taxes. Actually, they're lowering the tax on the incredibly rich. But anyway, but even if that were true, state and local taxes would have to go up because somebody's got to build roads. We need roads and we need upkeep of roads, etc. Come on, you know that, right? So that's one portion of it. The other is that when they make all those promises when they're getting confirmed, you know, and some people talk to Ben Carson, and you know, he earnestly says, no, I care about the poor and the middle class, and I'm gonna do my job here. And then some Democratic senators come out and go, I talked to him, we had a heart to heart. There's no heart to heart, guys. Of course they were gonna slash the budget, and they were gonna slash it monstrously. All the stuff they say in confirmation hearings is totally useless nonsense. I can't stand it when the politicians pretend that there's a human being there that they're having a conversation with that you could reason with. No, they said they were gonna brutalize the housing and urban development budget, and they brought in Ben Carson to do exactly that so that they can say, no, it's okay, a black guy did it. A black guy did it, it's okay, right?
Yeah.
It must be reasonable if that's what happened. And finally, from my perspective, be careful what you wish for, Trump administration, because they, you know, in their racist mindset, you know, whenever Trump talks about the cities, he's like, oh, they're burning, oh, the crime, the inner cities. He means black people, right? And so when he talks about the poor, he almost always talks about black people. But the reality is the majority of the poor in this country are white.
Yeah.
Of course, the majority of the whole country is white, right? And so when you cut these guys' housing, well, the number one demographic other than white evangelical Christians for Donald Trump in terms of the vote he got was uneducated whites. Who are these folks? A lot of them are uneducated whites, Trump voters.
Yeah.
So when all of a sudden Trump voters turn around and they don't have a house anymore and the sewers aren't working and there's giant potholes in the road, they go, what happened? Well, you happened. You voted for Trump and this is what happens.
Yeah.
So this is a bigger problem than even this, because that's why housing prices are so high in America and many places. They're artificially inflated because we're not building low-income housing. We're not building affordable housing. No, even Democratic mayors and what have you. So there's no plan. I just read the Labor Party's platform over in England, and they actually have built into their platform thousands of housing for first-time home buyers, which is there's a big barrier to entry for first-time home buyers in the United States, which was exacerbated by Barack Obama bailing out the private equity firm Blackstone on his way out the door, which keeps prices artificially high because now they're doing rentals the way they used to do bundling with houses. They're doing that with rentals now. Anyway, we don't build low income housing anymore, which we need to do. And in the Labor Party's platform in England, they have also thousands of new housing for what they call rough sleepers, and that's called that's what they call homeless people. I didn't know that. So they actually have in their platform, we need to build affordable housing. It would be great to see a political party in the United States say the same thing.
And so, I mean, we're getting here a pretty clear idea of the vision for the future. I mean, we've talked about the huge tax cuts that are coming in raw form, the tax cuts that are coming as a result of the HCA, the new Republican healthcare bill. So if you're rich in America, you're gonna get a fabulous amount of extra money showered onto you. And then you have the willingness on this at the same time to massively increase homelessness. I mean, think about the crime that's going to come about as a result of this when people are thrown out of their housing, they have nowhere else to turn. I mean, you can't cut billions and billions of dollars away from these programs and not expecting negative outcomes. Now, unfortunately, the people who are going to suffer even from those secondary outcomes in a lot of cases are also poor people. That's what's so bad about it. But the rich can't simply hide in their penthouses for all time. If they burn this country to the ground, if they put people in incredibly dire straits, some of that eventually is gonna come back to the rich. And we've seen that throughout history time and time again. As countries go under because of policies like this, they can be insulated from the crime, from the violence, but not forever. It's incredibly short-sighted.
No, there's a country though that's figured it out where there's almost no regulation at all. And the rich get to keep anything they want, but the poor don't get anything. But that's okay. It worked out pretty nicely in Somalia. Okay.
Yeah.
Poor Somalia. I keep picking on him.
Mark Blythe is a political economist who's famous for coining the term global Trumpism. He predicted Brexit. He predicted Trump, and he has a funny thing. He says the Hamptons. He tells the rich people in America, the Hamptons are not a defensible position.
Okay.
It's a low-lying area.
It is actually, yeah.
Young Turks now has over 6 billion lifetime views. You know who did that? You did that. We're now larger than CNN, ABC, you name a news network online, we're larger than them. And you built all that as everyone scoffed and didn't believe. And here we are, guys, thanks to you. Build independent media together with us at tytnetwork.com/join.